Guys, welcome back to my channel. A month has gone by and the garden has made some progress, but also there have been some issues, so let's get straight into it. For those of you new to the series, I created a show garden at the RHS Tatton Park Flower Show. It turned into this, an alleyway garden, and it was visited by thousands of people throughout the week. Once the show was over, we deconstructed the garden and then I relocated it to Mustside in Manchester. I gave it to a community who lived along this alleyway here, and the goal was to transform this space into an urban oasis. Yasmin and Gemma and the rest of the community have been using the alleyway to grow flowers and veg for around about 5 years or so. The community rallied round and we worked together to rebuild our garden here in Mustside. And we even had to take into consideration some of our other residents along the alley. It took some real hard work, but we accomplished it and the garden looked fantastic. But what would it look like a month later? Well, let's find out. One of the questions I had about this alleyway was whether or not it could be a productive space for growing food, and this garden proves that it could be extremely productive. It was interesting to note that even in the middle of the city, there were still some pests. So we did have some cabbage white butterflies on the brassicas, but overall the plants weren't that bothered, they continued going. This whole entire section of this part of the alley was grown for Mr. Tortellini, the tortoise, and as you can see, it is flowering like crazy. This has led to one happy little tortoise. This is the first of the water features and it's available on my website. It's called the Cirrus Pond, and this pond is edible. But one of the most striking features happens to be this water feature, which was repurposed from my Chelsea flower show garden. Down here we have one of my Nimbus ponds, and just look at the progress. The colocasias are doing a fantastic job. But look at how much the salvinia has multiplied. There's not one bit of space on the surface of this pond, and in actual fact it hasn't been topped up in over a month and it's only dropped around about an inch. The reason is because it is so densely packed at the top. It means that the sun can't get in, so there's less evaporation. And as you can see, the water hawthorns are thriving. You can see their leaves here, so these are a type of lily, and then it looks as though some of the salvinia are beginning to flower as well. Fabulous. Now this area of the garden is doing fantastically well. You can see all of these blooms, and these plants are all evergreens or alpines. For this section of the garden, I wanted the residents to be able to see a little bit of colour all year round. But this isn't just your regular flower bed. In fact, this is the bin shed. As you can see, the bins are being well used, and now they can't get blown over in the wind or get attacked by hungry foxes. So by adding a little bit of colour, doing the bins is no longer a chore. Yasmin's husband Lewis made this planter out of a pallet from a skip at the flower show. At the show it was full of flowers, but here in the alley we've repurposed it into a strawberry planter. We were gifted these fantastic planters from Veg Truck, and as you can see, everything inside it is thriving. As you can see, the garden itself is looking pretty decent. It's missing a little bit of watering, but other than that, you know, it's what you would expect to find during August. So I'm really happy with it. However, it's not all been great news. Unfortunately, there's been quite a lot of antisocial behaviour down the alley. We've had the theft of the grandfather clock, we've had a couple of the lighting fixtures have been smashed up, but just recently some of the teenagers around the area have begun to use some of the communal spaces to smoke, and it's kind of began to cause a little bit of a disturbance because they also come back at 3 o'clock in the morning. So now the task is to try and include as many people as possible, but also make sure that these kids know that the space is for everybody, not just for them. And unfortunately, with this alleyway, it doesn't have any kind of gates. For an alleyway to be gated like this, it needs to go to the council, and once it goes to the council, it then needs to go through the court system, and then after that the gates can then eventually be paid for. However, this whole process takes around about a year or so, and over, in some cases, £20,000 that the council is going to have to pay. So naturally the funding for this is not normally there. So the fact that we have no gates on our garden is going to be a contentious issue for us for the considerable future until we manage to get that in place. So we're going to have to find different ways to deter people from abusing the space as well. But I am confident that as a community group we will be able to overcome this issue, and to be honest, we all foresaw this happening anyway. But I wanted to be transparent on this video to show you that, you know, not everything goes to plan, and this is a real reality of alleyway gardening. My goal over the next few years is to encourage as many people as possible across the country to create their very own alleyways. But it's also really important to know that there will be issues along the way. Let's fast forward another month and see the progress of the garden. Now we are right in the middle of a heat wave here in September, so I wanted to take a look at the alleyway and see how it's going. So let's just get straight into it. Just look at the growth of some of this veg. It's absolutely fantastic. The chard is huge. There are different types of lettuce in here, and just out the corner of my eye, look at this. The brassicas along the garden are doing really well as well. Just look at how luscious all of these leaves are. A lot of the plants grown in Mr. Tortellini's section were grown by All Saints Catholic School, and the Nemisia, the nasturtiums, and even strawberries are just flourishing, and it looks like we've got a seal of approval. It will soon be time for Mr. Tortellini's long nap, but in the meantime he can feast away and gather as much energy as he needs to get him through winter. The flower borders are absolutely bursting with colour, and this has led to some changes in the garden. I love the fact that not only have we created this amazing space, but we've seen an absolutely dramatic increase in the wildlife that now frequents the alley. What was once a grey, boring, barren space is now thriving and teeming with wildlife. Now that the garden is more established, it's become home to lots of different wildlife. It may be late September, but the garden is still full of different blooms, and the bees and hoverflies are loving it. This garden hasn't just created a feast for pollinators. In fact, some predators are enjoying the bounties of this garden as well. In the space of 2 months, we've been able to create a balanced ecosystem. There's an abundance of food on this garden, not just for the humans, but all the way up along the food chain. It's amazing to see just how quickly nature can adapt. The edible pond has almost doubled in size. And not only that, this spider has learned that insects are attracted to the water feature, which makes it a perfect hunting ground. Just like a normal flower bed, some of the plants are over, like this eryngium. However, if we dive a little bit deeper into the flower bed, we'll see that actually this eryngium is going to have a second flush before the year is out. Absolutely incredible. Look at all of this new growth waiting to come up through the canopy. And in the meantime, the rest of the plants are flourishing. The cocktail bar is going from strength to strength, and all along the garden we've got elements of evergreen planting. This is going to provide us with lots of colour even through winter. An important thing I had to consider when designing this garden was the fact that money next year for this garden will be an issue. We won't have large amounts of funding, so a lot of the plants that I chose are really good at self-seeding. We can either let the plants self-seed naturally, or we can collect the seeds and then we can use our greenhouses and cold frames to start afresh next year. In the main pond, the water lilies have now stopped flowering. However, the white stargrass has completely taken over and is blooming beautifully. Most of the plants in the bathtub have now come to the end of their season, but it's not all bad. Just look at all of these seed pods on the agapanthus, and of course the geraniums are still ploughing away. The bin shed is the gift that keeps on giving. It is still flowering. I'll leave a link below for this particular bin shed by Bloom so that you can have a look if you want to pick one up for yourself. The wonderful Nora is responsible for this section of the garden, and as you can see, her veg down this side is doing tremendously well. Everywhere I look, there's something growing. Some of the troughs may be overcrowded, but that is not slowing them down at all. Now, Nora is from Lebanon, and she explained to me that in Lebanon, they drink water infused with geraniums. I think we can all agree that over the past 2 months, this garden has become a complete success. Let me know in the comments below if you think we should be turning more of these grey spaces into something a little bit greener. If you have any questions about how to start one of these gardens, let me know in the comments below and I'll happily do a video. As you can see, the whole garden has completely transformed. Is it picture perfect? No. Does it look like a real garden? Yes. And seeing the community out there using the space as it was intended, it just goes to show if we make these kind of spaces, it can make a dramatic impact to communities and to wildlife within our towns and cities. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me, and hopefully I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we've got one more visit to the Alleyway for 2023. Don't forget, I'm going to be working with this community for the next 12 months on this garden. So there's going to be plenty more Alleyway content coming, along with more balcony gardening content. So hopefully I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye.